Good morning. Let's see if you're live as usual. Okay. Oh, beautiful. Miss Erike, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. So how many people are watching us? Let's see. Okay, cool. So let's start with the updates news as some people are joining. So uh first things first, on the spectrum of hacks. So we do remember Bybit with $1.5 billion of Ethereum tokens being hacked earlier this year. Uh, Big portion of of those tokens have been laundered and cannot be found, so untraceable at the moment. So essentially lost. That's again $1.5 billion from the B. Question is, how much time will it take for the exchange to recover those money? It's unknown. Something is telling me the exchange will collapse very soon because, despite the line of credit and stuff like this, I mean, did anybody go to jail? By the way, not yet. So that's interesting. Now another one is from Sui that just happened a couple of days ago, $200 million hack. So there's not much information yet what happened. All that they do, kind of, the root cause, and they kind of go over it. But it's what's really happening is like there's some has been some issue with the DEX, with the oracles, and then the question is what type of oracles do they use? And of course, Sui raised a lot of money. So this is one of the networks that raised like significant portions of investors' funds, and whether that CETUS has, was, a SUI specific um, DEX, meaning like it's SUI based, sure, but like was like a core DEX or was it like a third party DEX? Right? So that's to be found. I'm not sure if you guys remember Mantra project. So the Mantra project is loading up. So Mantra project did some rock pool early as well, around April. So we don't see that many news out of crypto, but there's like really lots of news happening. So the token, it seems like it was done by the team slash investors. So when from $6 down to 40 cents right now, which is how much? Which is 90%, more than 90% decline. So over the course of the year, it still says 37.74 because it was pumped. And the question is, how was it pumped? Who pumped it? These were pretty aggressive pumps. And massive dump right there on the retailers. Um, so why is this all happening? So I made a post on Rails. I would like to just explain this post in more detail. And this is the post. This is perhaps the pinnacle of it all. Sequoia Capital exec, also a victim of Coinbase data breach. So what happened was Coinbase used apparently some outsourced staff for data, and of course the data has been leaked. The data contains your phone number, in some cases your social security number, because Coinbase needs to report tax forms to the government. Coinbase also has your personal address, obviously a first name and last name. They also do have your verification documents, right? So they have your whatever passport, ID. They also have your image with the photo. So you all submit that for the KYC. So there's a whole, you know, a whole set of documents and pieces of super personal and thus valuable to bad people information that they got access to. And VC funds like Sequoia Capital, who have been focused on let's make money, became a victim of the Coinbase data breach, and that's just a publicly available information. So what I'm trying to say is like there have been probably a number of people who do operate VCs who also clients of Coinbase, and this leads me to this very important discussion point of long-term thinking versus short-term thinking. And yeah, it's easy to say, well, Ghost did not launch yet. You guys will take another 20 years to launch. Like, okay, that's one argument. But the long-term thinking piece does not negate, the profit-oriented nature in some cases, right? So, for example, with the lack of ZIRP, the zero interest rates environment. So throughout right after the 2008, essentially, when the rates have been dropped down to zero for the most part, lots of startups have been funded because the cash was more or less free. So you have inflation, whatever 2-3%, but your money you can take a loan, at a very very cheap rate from a bank. So therefore, since money was cheap, there have been lots of startups that have been funded with on the concept without much, without MVPs, without any developments, just like an idea, like a deck. No track record, no adoption, no nothing. And I'm talking about Web 2 projects. Of course, Web 3 projects too, but Web 2 projects where you can pretty, rapidly develop an MVP, launch it, see if it resonates or not, then tweak it around. So with Web3, it's slightly more complicated. Not slightly, it's a lot more complicated because in Web3, you need to launch the entire ecosystem. You need to launch the whole thing right away. And once you do launch it, if you incorporate certain adjustments, such as upgradable smart contracts, for example, then you, of course, you like essentially screaming to the community that you will hack them at some point of time, right? Because like upgradable smart contracts will mean that an admin can access it. So you kind of need to go and launch stuff which is either set in stone, such as like smart contracts which are not upgradable, or DAO-based governance-based votes. Like Ghost DAO has a governance-based votes. Ghost Chain has massive governance, but it's like all governance-based votes on a number of things, including council, including whales, including validators and stuff like this. And like the long term, like the short term thinking is like, oh, let's like focus on like money. And when you go with your Web 2.5 startup, how you raise money is because you say, listen, we're not going to be like spending time to figure it out. We're not going to be spending time build the right architecture. We're not going to like, no, all we're going to do is we're just going to do the same thing we did in Web 2. So that's how they think, right? They think like, all right, so we need to build like a DEX. Okay, cool. But wouldn't that be cool for our DEX to also take credit cards? Oh, cool. Let's incorporate MoonPay. Well, MoonPay, bad example. Well, actually, yeah, sure, MoonPay or whatever, right? Like, or not BitGet, but BitPay. I think that's not another one. Maybe Stripe itself. Like, let's incorporate like the piece responsible for credit card. I think Transic, that's another one. I think that's a partner of MetaMask. Like a partner that can incorporate, can take in the credit card information, identify the user, the KYC the user, completely, and then essentially take the money in. Okay, cool. But we are DEX, right? We are decentralized. Okay. But so now we know how to take cash, fiat, from users. Okay, that's cool. Now we took the money, but it will also be nice to convert the money. Okay, cool. So do we need to also, get partnership with Circle maybe? Or maybe get partnership with Coinbase, right? Or Kraken, or just again, maybe BitPay just does it all, right? Like they already do the credit card stuff, they convert that fiat into crypto. Okay, cool. Now would be cool because we are, we don't like care about decentralized. We just want to build a DEX, right? Like they just want to build the DEX, right? Like it just says decentralized exchange, but they don't think like that. Like we just want to build a DEX. Okay, would be cool for the user to like kind of, you know, kind of like be able to, if they lose their password, like kind of get access to their funds. If they lose their private key. So how about we like create something like, creating a private key, public key type of wallet based on an email. Let's like incorporate, I think it's called Magic Link. Let's incorporate that thing, right? Let's do Magic Link. So as a user, you just go ahead and just put your email address and we, generate public private key. Essentially, we store it, but we kind of don't, but we kind of do. So in case you lose it, you'll always be able to get access to it back to your account, therefore to your crypto. Okay, so we just incorporate we essentially incorporate payment vehicle. We incorporated credit card intake. We incorporated the cash on ramp, off ramp. We incorporated recovery of the password. Okay, what else can we do? Because we had DEX, right? Well, maybe, just maybe, we need to bring like investors. What do we give those investors? Well, they probably want to get 90% of the allocation. So how about we give it to them? So how about our tokenomics is just the allocation? Like the allocation of like, okay, 10% goes to retail users through airdrops and 90% is allocated to investors. VCs, the team, we're going to call all different like weird words. Like we'll say like, okay, 15% will go to the ecosystem, and then 10% will go to like, I don't know, partnerships, and then 20% will go to the treasury. Like I never understood what the fuck does that mean, treasury. Well, like what treasury? What the fuck does it even mean, treasury? Okay, treasury. Of course, then 15% goes to the team, 25% goes to investors, and then 10% goes to retailers. So now there's like this like misalignment of like 90% of stuff belongs to the team and VCs like insiders essentially, and 10% belongs to the team, to the retail investors. Okay, what else can we do as a DEX? Well, what else can we do actually? User interface. Well, maybe I'm not. Maybe that's it, right? Like, let's create some. How about that? How about we also would like to provide certain, like liquidity, initial liquidity, to the DEX. So how about we make a partnership with a bank, right? How about we take a loan from the bank and put the money there? So then, but we need to pay the interest rate. So for us to pay the interest rate to the bank, we have to charge like, significant fees. So how about we figure out the way how we can extract those fees in some type of way, hidden, not hidden, doesn't matter, but we just need to pay whatever 8, 10%, whatever the interest rate, 7% interest rate to the bank. So then we need to adjust the business model. The business model will probably if you charge 4% per transaction fee, like nobody will come to us because DEX is charged 0.3%. So how about we charge like also like whatever, but we do something like, again, maybe we have 90% of the allocation. We sell the token. That's how we pay for the interest rate. Like essentially you start figuring out like all these like weird ways to pay for your, real obligations in the real world. So sounds cool. Sounds like, oh, that's, what's not Web 2? What's not Web 3 about it? It's totally Web 3. It's a DEX, right? It's a DEX, but it's a DEX on crack. You can, on-ramp, off-ramp your fiat, your cash. You can take credit cards. Yeah, we take KYC, but who cares? It's a DEX, right? Like, it's amazing. Then, you incorporate like Coinbase to like, help you buy, sell stuff, whatever. Although, then what's the point of the DEX? Okay. And then you also like if a person is losing their password, they can always recover it. Like it's amazing. It's an amazing product. It's a product, right? Like we are like Steve Jobs, all of us. Like we are fucking Steve Jobs. Like we build a product. The problem with this approach is nothing that has been said is Web 3. None of this stuff. Like everything that I just mentioned is totally Web 2. But since they're moving to the crypto space, they're and they're portraying themselves as Web 3. We call them Web 2.5, but it's just a Web 2 model. And the reason why it's Web 2 model is if you are using cash on ramp, off ramp, first of all, you do KYC immediately. And then stuff like this happens all the time, right? Like as long as you share your KYC with an agency, I'm not going to go into details. What type of agency? Profit or non-profit? Your data will most likely be leaked. And once your data is leaked, you now are subject to really, really, really inconvenient, uncomfortable bad stuff. That's the reality of this world. The reason why that's the case is because AI can change the world and blah 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 and amazing. Well, okay, AI can change the world, but maybe maybe AI will finally tell us what to do with with interest rates and not lead to massive overpricing of the stock market. Maybe AI will lead us to, I don't know, to better, I don't know, elections. More candidates maybe to select from, or like decision making will be guided by, artificial intelligence based intelligence, whatever, right? So like, thing is, we becoming dumb. Like, the new generation and future generations will think that AI is smart, and for some reason, like, we becoming more shallow thinkers, more surface thinkers. So we don't dive deep into the width of like into the weeds of like what is really happening on the background. So therefore, we just we're substituting our stupidity for being called quote quote a product person. And every single barrier, every single like one of those integrations leads to massive risks to the end user. And the reason why we do that is because it's easy to have this product raise money. And then, of course, we can comment, who exactly is giving money, like, how this money is actually being used, what's the business strategy of those VCs, like how they integrated these business strategies into, the thing. Like, we think that, like VCs just make money from the upside, right? But upside is how do we create the upside? The upside is created by future investments, right? So it's kind of like a pyramid scheme, no matter what, right? Whether it's a stock market or VC investment. So if it's a pyramid scheme legal, well, it's legal, right? Like they still need to find more liquidity down the road. So that extra liquidity will either be found from enterprise players, or it will be found from retailers. And at the end of the day, once you go IPO in a Web2, or you go ICO, like you just list your token in a crypto world, boom, now you have access to the retailers, and that's your exit liquidity no matter what. Whether you want to exit or not, that's your exit liquidity no matter what. That's just how the world works. So the business model for those VCs is not necessarily to build a profitable company, it's for them just to find the exit, right? Because if they can deliver profits, they're fine. So the whole structure is pretty corrupt, right? Like those founders building those dexes that I just described, which comprise of like all these Web 2 parts, they just want to raise the fast money from those VCs. VCs give them the money, knowing that how stupid those founders are, and then they take significant portion of the allocation, and then they just dump it all on the users. And the reason why that's beneficial for the VCs is because VCs don't go to jail. VCs are just investors. It's the team who goes to jail, right? So like teams think that they did a great achievement, like raised money, but raising money is not an achievement. Like we made it sound like it's an achievement. Raising money is nothing. Raising money is a great, like we use this like as a litmus test of the fact that maybe your concept, theory, etc. is profitable. Now, if your investors are also active in the space and can introduce you and create some partnerships or become users themselves, or like whatever, I mean that's super valuable. Like that's exactly kind of like the perfect thing. But in most cases, like investors in those startups like don't give a shit about the product. They don't understand the product. They just understand how to exit their position onto and dump it essentially onto the retailers. But what those VCs don't realize is, okay, fine, you can make all those millions of dollars, but money is nothing. Money is air, right? Kind of started looking a little bit into Judaism, right? Like money is nothing. Even in Judaism, money is not valuable at all. What's valuable is knowledge, and what's valuable what you can leave to the world, like actual tangible or intangible benefit to the world. Money itself has no value. Money is just a receipt for something else, right? So those VCs, not just VCs, but VCs enterprise, like they also becoming dumb. Like everybody's just becoming dumb, right? Or insane, or both. And they think, okay, they made all these millions of dollars, but what can they like? What do they do now with that? Like, did they make a world? Like, did they did they bring something beneficial to this world? Did they make this world a better place? They made the money, but even that money that they made is being massively diluted because they screwed it up. Because inflation is way over what it used to be on the average, and it's only going to be increasing, even in the U.S., let alone the rest of the world. Last 5 years after COVID, when everybody fucked things up, all central banks just like completely fucked it up and printed shit ton of money, we all experiencing massive inflation. The argument is, those guys can be, wearing great suits and say all the right words on camera, but apparently have no fucking clue what they're doing. They have no fucking clue what they are doing. That's a reality. Do we know how to do it better? Not necessarily. I'm not saying we do, but we definitely know that central banks screwed up. We experienced massive inflation. That's the result of the labor of decision making. Whether it has been impacted by political agenda or not, who cares? You can always, if you respect yourself as a central banker, you can always, just leave the post, right? You don't have to make bad decisions. So that's the problem, right? Like the problem is, and that's what we've been talking about this all, like, with Ghost, like for a very long time. We have to take a longer term thinking. We have to. Going back to the ZERP. So yes, lots of startups that were not very successful in raising funds during this ZERP era of zero interest rates are extremely profitable right now. They have 5 people, 10 people, but they do have actual revenues. They didn't raise money. Many startups didn't raise money and failed. Some startups did not raise money and are super successful. They took a longer term stand versus lots of startups that actually did raise money and now selling below how much money they raised. So like totally like in the red, completely in the red, because those startups took a more short-term thinking with the VCs, with this whole, crowd of, VCs and incubators and accelerators and startups and the teams and college dropouts and blah, blah, blah. So while Web 2.5 may seem like a super positive, like super like go-to strategy, the other day, not going to describe much, but we did describe this to the council 2 or 3 times so far. The personal anecdote, despite so many bridges being in featured on CoinDesk, every week, every month, like almost every week, somebody would come to us and say, "Hey, here's a new bridge. How Ghost is different from that bridge? How Ghost is different from the other bridge? How is Ghost different from bridge number 3, from bridge number 4?" When we actually needed to bridge something about like a couple months ago, there were no bridges available. Like literally nothing. Nothing. And those bridges raised not $1 million, not 10 million. They raised hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm not talking about bridges. Like I'm not talking about bridging startups. Bridging startup on average raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Like if you're like in Web3 building a bridge, you will most likely have no problem raising 50 mil, 100 mil per startup. Per startup. But these bridges are not available. You can use them. Where's the money? Right? Like, where's everything? That was lots of hype. So we're moving a little bit slower than lots of you guys want, but we are moving more and more, more fundamental. We want to make sure that everything is figured out. And the reason why we started to finally publish pieces related to tokenomics, which we'll cover in more detail today, is due to the fact that the final design of the Web 2.5 bridge, which significantly lowers down the transactional fees on the bridge exits, that has been only on the architecture side, had been finalized in January, February of this year. The council voted for that new design, and once that new design has been approved, we started moving fast. Because now we can start finalizing tokenomics. So tokenomics has been always kind of, high level finalized, but then the devil is in the details. So we do kind of go over the details. So yesterday we had another call with a few folks from, from the Whales chat regarding, covering, how this like tokenomics works on the bridging side, like How does it work specifically? How does it impact the validators? How does it impact the council? How does it impact the treasury? Kind of touched upon EVM bridges and also a little bit of Bitcoin bridges. So we're going to be developing all and uncovering all that stuff in more detail in the articles. So please be patient. Give us a little bit of time. Something is telling me that we'll have probably around 50 pieces, like more like at first I thought it was going to be 20, and then the DEX pieces alone will probably be like 11 pieces just in the DEX. Just in the DEX. As an intro to the DEX, because those intros are super important regarding connecting the DEX integration into the Ghost DAO and thus into the Ghost bridging. So we need to cover that stuff in detail. If not for you guys, at least for us ourselves, so we have a point of reference. So you can always go back to these articles and use those formulas. That is super useful for us to set up monetary policy for the Ghost DAO. And definitely for you guys as well. So, if you guys have any questions, like that's just the reality, right? The reality is all of these Web 2.5 projects are getting freaking hacked. And it's going to be like this. And it was like this. Like nothing is new. Like it's literally the same thing every single year, every single month. Web 2.5 projects will be hacked. And we need to take pride in being part of Web3, a Web3 project. And we need to take pride in trying to contribute as much as possible, like do whatever we possibly, like we individually can do regarding, writing notes, understanding tokenomics, participating with Ghost DAO, blah, blah, blah. What's to be expected? So the LP bond the math behind the LP bond has been finalized yesterday, finally. So we'll probably publish an LP bond that you guys can play with this Sunday, which is tomorrow. So what will need to happen is the LP bond will be with the quote price, and in order to buy it, you need to get an LP token. And in order for you to get the LP token, you need to contribute eGhost and DAI. So you get your GDAI first, just like you typically got by converting your Sepolia ETH into GDAI. Then you swap your GDAI for eGhost on the DEX, which is available on Ghost DAO. Then now you have eGhost and now you have DAI. Now you can contribute both of them to get your LP. And then you give that LP in exchange for eGhost at a discount. Right? So all of these things have been done like that. Why is it done by the user? Mostly due to the transactional fees like gas fees, etc. But it still kind of makes sense because of the discount. So that's how this thing will work. So we launch it tomorrow, I think. And then the next chain, like if LP bond goes well, the next chain, Hoodie Ethereum testnet, will be live within the next 2 weeks, I think. So we'll have two chains. So I'm not sure if you noticed, not going to be demonstrating it right now, but on the Ghost DAO, you'll see this little drop down. So it's Sepolia, but it's extendable to other blockchains as well. So we'll have Sepolia and Hoodie. We'll probably need to redeploy Sepolia. So those of you who gave us ETH, we'll try to reimburse you guys somehow through like an inverse swap, so you can get your Ethereum Sepolia back. So you can put, essentially reinvest that Ethereum Sepolia on another version of the Ghost DAO, version 2. The version 1 has been slightly buggy, so not all the features that we wanted to demonstrate have been showed. Specifically, the APY has been laggy, so you didn't see that, so you didn't see the full simulation, therefore. Hoodie, though, you'll have a full version contingent upon LP bond is corrected. So that's what's to be expected. So LP bond plus Hoodie. So coming into the summer, we'll have two chains, two testnets. And then over the course of the summer, we'll be focusing on explaining, but also demonstrating different metrics of Ghost DAO on the multi-chain side of things. Now, not going to be cross-chain yet, so you're not going to be able to bridge it yet. We're delaying this for a reason, because we need to first understand, all of us needs to, like old whales, need to understand exactly what type of metrics are we looking into. Like, what metric will make you bridge from chain 1 to chain 2? What metric will make you vote for this DAI bond or vote for this LP bond, right? So that's kind of important. And those multi-chain metrics, including the index, including different ratios, including RFP, risk-free value, market value, the market capitalization, obviously, the index itself, the arbitrage opportunity, all of that stuff will be integrated somehow into some type of multi-chain user interface. We'll probably be launching additional chains like Pulse, Gnosis, Ethereum Classic, like we played before, Linea. We'll probably be launching those. And then cross-chain stuff will happen sometime, probably midsummer to end of summer, like the actual cross-chain, the actual bridging. Testnet to testnet, and then we'll be pretty much ready if we have the community, etc., to go mainnet. But those, that stuff may be delayed again due to more like, not like delayed, but more like extended at a later time, in favor of kind of gathering a larger community, right? So that's kind of like the course of events. Now, let me go through the articles here. So those have been published. All three have been published so far. So let me go through the first one, understanding DEX fees, the trader's perspective. So from the DEX fees, when you trade LP, when you trade on the DEX, somebody has to provide liquidity so that somebody's LP providers, so those LP providers receive DEX fees in exchange for risking their capital, actually risking their liquidity, essentially. We'll explain exactly how they risk their liquidity in future articles, but from the trader perspective specifically, you just pay the fee. The fee is typically 0.3%. Now, it says 0.1 to 0.3 because it depends. It's typically 0.3%, of which 0.25 goes to the liquidity provider, 0.05 goes to the team, advisors, investors, etc. And here we see DEX to SEX spot trade volume. The data is taken from the block. So block is referring to the DeFi Llama, but I just took the data from the block itself. And about 20% of the entire volume is traded on the DEX, right? So here the DEX have been just, it was born around 2020 through the likes of Uniswap and SushiSwap and Aave and Compound. So those have been the pioneers of DeFi, essentially. And yeah, about 15 to 20% of that is DEX volume, which is quite interesting. And it's kind of increasing as well. So hopefully we get more towards the future of DEXs. Like as users, we need to understand where the trend is going, and of course the trend will be going more towards Web3, like pure Web3. Like users are tired of being hacked. Users are tired of being looked at as fools. Users are tired of being fucking rug pulled every single time. So users want autonomy, no KYC, full freedom regarding and full control over full custody, full control of their money. Now the math is quite simple. So if you have reserves, right? So you have X1 and Y1. Those are the respective tokens, token X, token Y, and F is the DEX fee. Then the fee-less formula for figuring out the quantity of Y2, like if you bring an X2 token, how much Y2 token you're going to get, that's the formula right there. Now, the only difference between fee-less, which is not real, and fee-adjusted formula is this 1 minus F, like the fee itself, right? So you just incorporate, like if you look at this, like you just literally incorporate, like you multiply X2 by 1 minus F. So you incorporate it here on top and also on the bottom. You see like plus X2, so plus 1 minus F times X2. The formulas will get more scary, but do not be scared. The reason why the formulas are included is because what I hate the most after figuring out that Uniswap DEX calculation from LP perspective most likely gave us a wrong formula without telling us that that's a wrong formula, and that's Uniswap. So it will be also uncovered in future articles. It's fine that the formula is wrong. Tell us that it's approximate. Like tell us that tell us exactly how it's derived. So the reason for these formulas is to make sure we know exactly how it was derived. Like we know exactly what mistakes are, if there are any mistakes. So do not get scared by the formulas. Just take into consideration the final, like if you're scared about math, just take into consideration the last final formula and just use that for your own benefit. So yeah, the fees distributed, liquidity provides LPs as compensation. So this 1 minus F is essentially going to the LP providers. And now the practical example is, if you have a pair DAI, 100,000 DAI and goes 10,000 egos and the fees, let's assume 0.3%, and I come in as a user and I want to, as a trader, and I want to swap 1,000 DAI for egos, how much egos am I going to get? So without the fee, I'm going to get this 99.0099. With the fee, I'm going to get 98.7158. And then the question is like, is the difference actually 0.3? So we compared, and yes, it's roughly 0.3. It's not exactly 0.3, but it's roughly 0.3%. It's 0.9279, so it's close to 0.3. So that's the formula, right? So that's the beautiful part about Uniswap in this case, how it's all programmatic and how this stuff works out. So that's from perspective of the DEX fees. Now let me respond to first of all, Federal. Good morning, Crypto Bureau. Good morning. We're saying, can you explain how Web3 provides protections against hack over Web 2.5? Okay. And then Prime, I may be a slow walker, but I know we'll walk backwards. Lincoln, we want the project to launch to be slow, steady, and safe instead of fast. Yeah, exactly, and fail a character. Like exactly, like so let me just dive back into the protections of Web 3 versus Web 2.5. So if I remember correctly, Web 1 is like you just write your the publisher writes everything. Like I have a blog, I just write the blog, right? That's it. Like that's Web 1. Web 2, now users can create platforms, right? So now we as users, we maintain the platform essentially by creating content, but the platform is still owned. Like we don't own the data. So Web 2, we can contribute to the piece, but we don't own it. Like Facebook, right? You can make a comment on the forum, right? Or in the group or whatever, create a group. But your password is still owned by Facebook. And of course there are some, mechanisms how, like the password is not exactly stored by the platform, but it's kind of stored by the platform. So they don't know your password because they actually don't, but they do have access to it. So it could be, but they do, and they also have, there's a hashing mechanism of uncovering the password. So if, a bad guy wants to get it, they'll be able to get it. Plus, of course, there's massive censorship right now on, everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, well, after Elon Musk, less of censorship, but YouTube, right? Like say something, you'll be banned. Twitch, all of these social, media platforms, even Telegram now, getting into Telegram, slowly to messengers. That's Web 2. Web 3 is you actually own the data yourself, right? So now the hacks of Web 2.5 versus Web 3 is in Web 2.5, if you can do everything right with Coinbase, you can do everything right. You write the Coinbase password on a piece of paper and you put this in a safe deposit box, right? You don't tell anybody that you have a Coinbase account, right? You're being very anonymous yourself, so you're not a target. But Coinbase itself gets hacked, and now everybody knows who you are. So you did everything right, but since you did not control your own data, now you are the victim of the hack because those Web 2s don't know how to fucking store that data. The Web 3, the reason why it's way more hack resistant is because you control your data, which brings responsibility completely in your corner. However, if you did everything right with Web 3, good luck hacking you. It's virtually impossible. It's virtually freaking impossible. Of course, if you make mistakes, such as you scream, your social media, on your social media, you accidentally show your, 12-word seed phrase or your private key, right? Which happened a lot. Or you scream about your wealth on social media, and and you tell everybody exactly where you are located, with your first name, last name, etc. Being public with your wealth, like an idiot. Or you forgot your password, you forgot your private key, which happens quite a lot. 25% of crypto is lost or stolen. Lost, I would say, is the first word, actually lost. The guy with the flash drive, who is still trying to extend almost $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in a dump, in a trash dump in the UK, right? So he didn't lose it, but it seems like his girlfriend threw out the USB with the password, whatever happened. But can store it in such a way that, your wife, your kids, your significant others, your parents don't have access to it, right? You have to be very, very smart, very diligent about this. Kind of, going back to Judaism, for example, how the money will kind of, how the money appeared, how the banks appeared. Transporting gold was very challenging, right? But you kind of had to do it, like, from one country to another country. So then, kind of how the banking was created, the banking was like, oh, how about we put gold in one location and we just like trade with receipts? How about we just exchange receipts? So there was no money yet. Receipts for goods. The dollar, for example, is a receipt for goods, for gold, up until 1960s when the gold standard disappeared officially, legally. But prior to 1960s, your dollar, every single piece of dollar, every single dollar, like, was literally a receipt for certain portion of the gold, right? So that's like that's the nature of banking. So nature of banking meaning that, imagine there were no banks. We're talking 12th century, right, or whatever, 10th century, whenever the first bank reappeared, 17th century, whatever. Like, that vault with gold was protected crazily with like the best army in the world, right? There were no cameras, so there had to be some type of surveillance system around the guards, so the guards don't steal gold because there are no cameras, right? So like, if somebody steals something, and if that's a lot of gold, you need to account for it. So you need to count it every single week or whatever, right? Like, you need to check it maybe every single day, right? And if there's a delta in gold, then you punish the guards, right? Like, maybe, whatever. Like, you need to create a whole freaking system to control your asset, right? To make sure your asset is safe. When we talk about Web3, similar methodologies need to be used and utilized for your personal bank, which is your wallet or sequence of wallets, right? So, but if you are very careful with it in Web3, it's impossible to hack. Well, not everything is possible, but like, it's very difficult to hack you. And most importantly, you fully control your own destiny. That's why lots of users say, oh, fuck that. I don't want to control my wealth. I don't want to be a bank. It's too much responsibility. Like Generation Z right now. Maybe some of you guys are Generation Zs who are listening to this, but like Generation Z is described as like, like irresponsible, right? Like, low energy, like that stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, if you describe that whole generation like this, maybe Gen Z will be missing out on crypto. But actually, Gen Z is like the most, kind of the biggest demographic for crypto in the first place. Now, the question is, are they doing Web 2.5? Are they going through Web 2.5 for the price action, or they're actually going for the for the vision as as Generation X or Boomers, or are they going for like millennials, kind of somewhere in between, right? Like vision plus price action, whatever. So, but overall, like, if you employ proper practices for your Web3 storage, like, good luck for anybody to hack. Good luck. Like, and you fully control your destiny. And that's the beautiful part. And that's why back in 2016, 2017, there was so much freedom in the air when there was this Web3 revolution with ICOs, bad ICOs, good ICOs, doesn't matter. We thought we could change the world. We thought that the governments can finally fucking collapse. All this oppression can disappear, right? Because we control our destiny. We control our money. So we can do whatever fuck we want. If there's no money, governments cannot sponsor military anymore. No security. So we can, reorganize the whole thing. Like, we can really modernize the world. And then COVID happened and kind of like screwed up all of our dreams. For the most part, lots of people disappeared. In my environment, I would say 90% of people retooled from Web3 to AI or to something else, because they were tourists, and 10% stuck, and those 10% are the true OGs of the space. So that's a long answer to the question of Web3 versus Web 2.5. All right, let's move to, we have about 10 more minutes. Let's go to another two articles. Like, hopefully they'll be, please ask questions as well. And also ask questions in Wales regarding any specific piece, like everything which is not clear. The reason why it may sound slightly over complex, although that's not the intent, is again to show the entire derivation of how we got there. So we don't want to skip any steps. We want to make sure that all the steps are shown. So this one is understanding liquidity fundamentals from like LP valuation. So that's a tricky question and very useful question for us for Ghost DAO, because Ghost DAO, let me go back. Olympus DAO values LP tokens very differently. They call it RFV, risk-free value. They value it very differently, and they actually discount it by a markdown, which the markdown is a factor of the square root of the price of eGhost on the DEX. So RFE is the market value divided by the square root, in our case, of 1300. So that's roughly divided by 35. So essentially, not exactly, but kind of. So essentially, the risk-free value is so much more diluted compared to the market value. And the market value should be 30 to 40x the risk-free value, which is quite significant. So that's just to give an idea of why LPs is important, because Olympus has a different view on how to value LPs, and one of our differentiations will be to introduce a proper way of valuing LPs, very similar to how DEXs value LPs. So, but there's not much information on this at all. Like, if you try to search for it, you'll find general descriptions, like one sentence description definition, but no formulas. Like, how is it actually calculated? Like, how do you value an LP? So, what's an LP again? LP is you go ahead and you provide token X and token Y to the DEX. And in exchange, you get LP token. Typically, on Uniswap, it will be called Uni-V2, for example. That's an LP token. That's how they call it. But it's an LP token, liquidity pool or liquidity pair token. So the value of all the LPs in circulation is just equal to X, now quantity of token X times the price, and plus quantity of token Y times the price. Now, the thing is, and that's very important, is everything in this world is relational, and that needs to be understood. Like, everything is relative, right? So I think is it this example somewhere else? Like, we measure, like, how much is a piece of bread? Let's assume, like, whatever, like, how much is it? Like, say $1, $2, right? But $2, so it's like 2 units of $1 is equivalent to a peck of bread, right? So, like, you should be thinking about, like, units, like, and then kind of in our mind, the dollar then can be used for something else. Like, $1 is, I don't know, like a piece of gum. So therefore, one bread is 2 pieces of gums, maybe. But on the DEX, that's not the case. On the DEX, the dollar and the bread will have its own pair, and then a piece of gum and bread will have another pair, and then a piece of gum and dollar will have a third pair. So therefore, the relationship where everything goes back to $1 may not exist on the DEX, especially with eGhost. eGhost will only at first will be trading against DAI. It's not going to be trading against Ethereum. It's not going to be trading against Bitcoin. So yes, arbitrage opportunities are possible, but you should be thinking about this like 2 units of $1 is equal to a pack of bread. That's how you should be thinking about this. So therefore, the value of LP can either be measured in token X or in token Y. That's very important. So, because what's the price of X? The price of X, token X, can be derived based on the price of Y. And vice versa, the price of Y can be derived in terms of token X. So therefore, this formula is cool, but this formula is slightly, it's slightly what's even the word? Like, it's making things more difficult if you're using both token X and token Y. We should be denominating this whole LP either in token X or in token Y, so that's going to come later. And then the second most important formula is, if I'm Alice and I only have a portion of the LP, so I don't have all the LP tokens. Let's assume there's 100 LP tokens. I only have 30 of those LP tokens. So my personal value of those 30 LP tokens is, we multiply the total value here, by my share. My share is 30 out of 100, so 30%. So I would multiply the total value by 30%. So those are 2 fundamental formulas for the LP valuation, and we will be using them for market value on the Ghost DAO. That's why it's also very important, because market value, because the treasury contains LP tokens and also DAI. So DAI is measured as $1, but how do you measure LP tokens? Well, that's how you measure LP tokens. That's why it's important for us to know when we set the monetary policy. So now go back here. So remember, there's no such thing as price. There is, but kind of not. Like, price is just a relationship between the reserves. So price of X is just quantity of token Y divided by quantity of token X. So if you're trying to measure everything in token Y, then the price of token Y is just 1. Because how much, like, $2, like 2 units of $1, how much is $1? It's 1, right? Or we can say, like, how much is a pack of bread? It's just 1 pack of bread, right? So that's how we measure it. So P of Y is just 1 if you measure stuff in terms of token Y. So therefore, value of LP tokens through these, mathematical manipulations is just equal to 2y. So value of LP token is 2y. Similarly, value of LP token is 2x. So now you say, well, then it doesn't mean that 2x is equal to 2y. Yes, that's the whole thing. So then you say, well, then does it mean that x is equal to y? No, doesn't mean that. It just means that unit of x is equal to unit of y from this formula, but it's not true. So that's kind of this like not intuitive confusion of what's happening. But in the reality is you're not matching these two. You're just looking at the price quotient of x to y or y to x respectively. Right, so this needs to be understood. Spend some time, ask questions. We need to understand that stuff on the intuitive level if you want to set proper monetary policy. And then practical example here is you have 100,000 DAI, you have 10,000 e-ghost. So then how much, what's the price of e-ghost? The price of e-ghost is 10 DAI. Price of DAI is just 1 DAI. So then based on this, the LP is just equal to 2 times this, right? So times 100,000 DAI, which is 200,000 DAI. Boom. And then similarly, we kind of did the long calculations here, right? But the short calculation is just 2 times the 100,000 DAI, which is 200,000 DAI. Now, we can also value the LP in terms of e-ghost. So in terms of e-ghost, is going to be equal to 20,000 e-ghost. Now, why 20,000 e-ghost is equal to 200,000 DAI? Well, because the price of 1 e-ghost is 10 DAI. So 10 DAI multiplied by 20,000 e-ghost is equal to 200,000 DAI. So that's why 2x is equal to 2y, because the value of token y is different from the value of token x. Hope that's kind of like more or less clear. Finally, this piece which is also out, we have 2 more already scheduled and 3 more in the works. That's just on the DEX stuff. So this is the LP valuation part 2. And this talks about how many LP tokens will you actually receive. So also there's not much literature on this. There's very few posts on how many tokens will I actually receive. So okay, I understand that if I do have, so I'll go back here, go back to this formula. So if I do have 30 LP tokens out of 100, I get 30% share. Okay, cool. But how many tokens will I actually get? Will I receive 30 LP tokens or 10 LP tokens or 1 LP token? How many tokens will I receive? Not much information is out there, unfortunately. Although this information, I must say, in defense of Uniswap, is partly reflected on Uniswap documentation, which is very good. So, there are 2 scenarios and therefore 2 different formulas for describing the quantity of LP tokens you receive. So the first scenario is when the initial liquidity is provided. So that happens only once. Let me actually go back to Mr. IDK's question first. Is it 2x because there are 2 tokens of equal value to balance the liquidity pool? No, although that's a great question. So is it 2x because there are 2 tokens of equal value to balance the liquidity pool? No. So the whole point is the quantity, the intuition behind the DEX is whatever the reserves of 100,000 DAI have to match the reserves of 10,000 e-ghost. So how I would think about this is think about the scale. On the left scale, you would put 100,000 DAI. On the right scale, you will put 10,000 e-ghost, and they will be always matching each other. How I visualize it to myself is there's a pool comprised of DAI and e-ghost. 50% of that value is responsible. DAI is responsible for 50% of the value. E-ghost is responsible for the other 50% of the value, no matter what the quantity is. It could be 1 DAI and 10 million e-ghost. In this case, 1 DAI will be on one scale, 10 million e-ghost will be on the other scale. Yeah. So that's how I would think about this. That's the intuition. So the intuition is reserves of token X are always equal to the reserves of token Y. And that's genius. That's what Uniswap is very, very good. It's a smart idea. A very smart idea what they've done with the DEX. All right, so going back to this scenario number 1. So scenario number 1, the initial liquidity is only happening once. So once somebody provides that liquidity on the DEX, the quantity of tokens they will receive is equivalent to the square root of X initial times Y initial. Init means initial, right? So that's the initial quantity. Now, keep in mind that, and we'll kind of explain this later in the example, I think, in this article, is we also dealing with decimals. So wait, do I have the practical scenario? Yeah, boom. So here, let's assume we start with 10,000 DAI and 10,000 egos. That's exactly what we did for the Sepolia Ghost DAO launch. So the team contributed 10,000 DAI and 10,000 egos. When we go mainnet, we have to do the same thing. We have to essentially deploy certain quantity of DAI and certain quantity of egos. Egos will be free, DAI will not be free. DAI is actual like dollars, so we have to deploy this stuff. So DAI tokens will have 18 decimals. Egos will have 9 decimals. Why 9 decimals? The legacy of Olympus DAO. I'm serious. Like that's the answer, right? So then but LP tokens will have 18 decimals. So what happens is when you take quantity of DAI initial, which is 10,000, which is 10 to the fourth, right here, 10 to the fourth. You then multiply this by 10 to the 18. That's DAI. Then you multiply this by 10 to the fourth of egos times 10 to the 9 because there are 9 decimals on the ego set. And then you still divide this by 10 to the 18th for the LP tokens. So that's why the initial quantity of LP was 0.31. That's exactly, you can check the smart contract. That's exactly what has been minted by the Uniswap V2 on the Sepolia. So that's the initial stake of LP tokens that gets minted. Of course, if these numbers change, let's assume it's going to go 20,000, 20,000, then this quantity will be multiplied by 4. If you go, this is 100,000, this is 10,000, then it's going to be different. Like if you put 1 DAI and 1 egos, it's going to be different. Like it's going to be different depending on this formula. So this formula is definitive. So therefore, the quantity of LP tokens is a relative measure. 0.31, it's not big or small. It doesn't matter. It's just how the formula is calculated. So if you only have 0.31 LP tokens versus the initial quantity of, I don't know, 3.1, it doesn't say much. Right? It's just like, right? And that's how you should be thinking about this. You should be just thinking about the relative figure. So 0.31, then the question is, how many LP tokens do you have relative to 0.31? That's how you should be thinking about this as a user, as a trader, right? Or as an LP provider. So do not consider, 0.31 is tiny. No, it's not tiny. It actually could be huge, right? It could be like massive. Quick example of massive is Tether has 6 decimals, only 6. So if you contribute let me think about this. Yeah, if you contribute 10 million of Tether and 10,000 of Ego, so you contributed 10 million of Tether, which is $10 million, you will have the same quantity of LP tokens, right? So there are lots of different kind of variables that go into this formula, including the decimals. So do not, again, just to reiterate, do not think that this is too like tiny or large. This is just a number that you need to value your quantity of tokens compared to. So that's the first kind of like situation, like the first scenario where you are contributing the initial liquidity. It only happens once for the pair. If the pair is already provided, we will not see this scenario again. So this scenario is gone. Okay. So like, let's assume we do DAI egos, this scenario appears. If you're going to do another pair, say ghost DAI, like not egos, but ghost DAI, then it's going to be a new pair. So then yes, a new quantity of LP tokens will be generated based on this formula again. Once the scenario 1 is over, then pretty much for the rest of this of the DEX, we just proceed with scenario 2. And scenario 2 follows the formula, and where's the formula of minting LP tokens? This formula, right? So this formula is x2 over x1 times the total LP, or y2 over y1 times the total LP. And we take the minimum of this. Now, why the minimum? Still a huge question, because mathematically they're equivalent to each other. Because x2 to x1 times total LP is literally equivalent to y2 over y1 times the total LP. So there are some posts that say that we should go for the lowest token, but that's bullshit because, again, those are equivalent. The reason why they're equivalent is because this ratio, x2 over x1, is literally equal to y2 over y1 here from here. The reason why they're equivalent is because when you are contributing liquidity, you are contributing liquidity based on the price, and you don't pay the fee. So when you contribute liquidity, you do not pay the fee, the DEX fee. So you're not diluting the price. So the price ratio is literally the same, which makes x2 to x1 equal, x2 over x1 equal to y2 over y1. By the way, also like as a record, if these articles and formulas make you think that I knew personally DEXs that well, even a month ago, it's wrong. Because I'm learning all, like, all these new, so high level, of course, we understood. High level tokenomics, we understood. But like the details of it, we are deriving now. Like, so this is like super fresh stuff. And the reason why I'm saying that is you can do the same. Like, do not ever think that you're not capable to learn this, because you are. I'm not going to say that if I'm able to learn it, you will be able to learn it too, because like of course we have significant expertise in, well, forget math and coding, but like, like just tokenomics, Web3 in general. But like it's not impossible. Like you need to understand it's not impossible, and these formulas do not get how to say, do not get, like, don't be scared, right? Like just dive in. The more times you read the article, the more you will start understanding it. Some articles I read 5 times. On time number 6, the article is my best friend. First time I read it, I had no fucking clue what it said. Right? So that's how you should be treating it. Like treat this more like as an actual research paper. You'll probably have 50 articles like this. 50. Each article, roughly, anywhere from 2 to 5 pages. So we'll have like a 200-page book, ghost book, comprised of stuff explaining DAO, Ghost DAO, the bridging, the Ghost chain itself, the relationships, the certain simulations, certain predictions on bridging stuff. Like, so prepare to learn this stuff, because this is the wealth of knowledge, hopefully, that you may use to educate yourself and also bring your network to the project. Okay, so based on this, that's the LP, that's the quantity of LP token, that's how it's generated. LP2, that's what Bob receives when he contributes X2 and Y2 specifically, of token X and token Y. So therefore, the share of LP that Bob receives is LP2 over LP of total LP at time T, right? So the reason why it's at time T is because at time T, Bob already contributed X2 and Y2. So that's like a very, very interesting nuance, because there was X1 reserves and Y1 reserves, right? So before Bob, nobody will ever fucking tell you this, right? Like it's never to be found online. This is like the only one that actually does it. So when you contribute LP tokens, right? Like when you contribute X2 and Y2, you did not contribute it yet. So the reserves did not change yet. But the genius about Uniswap is that X2 over X1 and Y2 over Y1 is exactly equivalent to, this probably doesn't show this formula, is exactly equivalent to X2 over X1 plus X2. And Y2 divided by Y1 plus Y2. And the reason why that's the case is because these ratios are the same. Like the ratios at which you contribute liquidity is the same as the ratios of the reserves that exist before you contributed liquidity. Because this LP2 is a calculation. It tells you the forecasted LP value that you will receive. And then the actual formula is a little bit different. But you do receive that forecasted quantity of LP tokens. So that's a huge nuance. If that's not clear, like please ask this question in Rails. I'll explain in more detail. But essentially, like stuff is programmatic, so we have to make sure that it's calculated after you contributed reserves. But how do you estimate how many you will get before, right? So this is the estimate. This is how much of the this is how much estimated on the DEX or the quantity of LP tokens you'll receive before. And that's why it's a time T, because time T is changing, right? Like before you contributed, that's before time T. After you contributed, that's at time T, right? So time matters. So what may change is, like what may happen is, you have the forecasted LP tokens, right? So you have this ratio. You think you're going to get this quantity of LP tokens, and then you actually contribute and you get a different quantity. And you ask yourself, why the hell did I get a different quantity? Is the formula wrong? No. Chances are somebody in between your transaction also either pushed liquidity into the pool or took liquidity from the pool. So therefore, you may not, like if you do not get the same quantity of LP tokens as it has been forecasted, chances are somebody added or removed liquidity in between, like right before you did. So keep that in mind as well. That's very important because you need to calculate your quantities correctly. And then the question is how much, what's the value of those LP tokens that Bob receives? So it's just the LP share, right? Like the LP share here multiplied by the value of the valuation of the LP tokens in terms of token X. So we take 2 times token X, right? As we took from this other article here. So 2 times token X, the 2X, right? At time T. So 2 times X at time T multiplied by the LP share, which is LP2 over total LP at time T. And time t here is critical. It's very critical. And then example, so we have 100,000 DAI, 10,000 egos. The initial liquidity has been this, right? Liquidity has been provided, pair has been created, and then price is changed. And then after price is changed, that's the situation. So Bob wants to contribute 5,000 DAI. How many tokens will Bob receive? Well, it's just, based on all these formulas, he will receive 0.0158 whatever LP tokens. And then the question is, what's the value of these LP tokens? And it's going to be equivalent to just 10,000 DAI. And the reason, actually, is that true? Probably, or maybe not. But you got the point. So, yeah. Required LP, it seems like yes. Because he's contributing 5,000 DAI, so he's also contributing, therefore, 500 Ghost as well. So he's contributing both 5,000 DAI and 500 Ghost, E-Ghost. And again, they're equivalent to each other, remember? So that 5,000 DAI is equivalent to 500 E-Ghost. So therefore, he's kind of contributing 10,000 DAI, and boom, he's contributing 10,000 DAI at the point of evaluation. So the article is 100%, the calculation is 100% correct. A little bit confusing, a little bit tough to explain all this stuff, but that's what we're going to be doing. So you guys are educated on the matter. Please ask questions. There are no, all questions are super welcome, even if there are, super detailed, super daunting, whatever. On this note, thank you so much. See you guys next week. We'll have more stuff published. And